It talks about humor so that you can interject some sort of humor, dry humor or not. But you have to know one thing in advance. Are you a funny person? Or are you trying to be a funny person? Okay. If you're not really a funny person, my suggestion, don't do it. Okay. It's because nothing is worse than somebody who's not funny who's trying to be funny. And it goes a long way.
Hello, welcome to Creativity Boost Podcast. Today I'm super excited because I have on the show with me Michael Forman. He's an expert when it comes to the field of networking. And when I say networking, I don't mean networking in the digital sense of the word. I don't mean cybersecurity and whatnot, but I mean actually networking between two persons or more. And so we're going to be talking about something really, really captivating that we have titled How to Build Rapport, How to Build a Network with Creativity. Hi, Michael. How you doing? Good to have you on the show.
Hi, Daffy. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Now, I had to clarify for our listeners that when we're talking about networking, we're not talking about networking of two machines between each other, but we're talking about human networking. And I feel like it would be good if you could just give us an understanding of what networking means to you.
Well, networking means several things because you network one-on-one when you're meeting with somebody, and you network with 50 people going to a networking event. But the steps you take are primarily the same because you don't know who the person is. You have to get to know them. And it starts from the beginning when you shake hands, when you walk up to somebody. You're smiling and you're shaking hands and you're shaking with a firm handshake. All of that plays into it. All of this is basic skills for human interaction. It's basic communication skills. But I found that a lot of people don't know these things.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people don't know these things, and a lot of people think they can wing it when it comes to networking. But I've come to learn and I've come to discover that networking deserves as much intentionality as any other human skill that we give attention to. And that's why I brought you on the show, because you're the expert when it comes to networking. Do you want to tell us a bit about your journey into making this whole concept of networking into a live work that you do?
Sure. Well, networking has been a part of my life, for as long as I've been in the business world. I've owned pizzerias. I've been in the mortgage industry. I was in the military, and all of these things, you're networking with people. But in the military, I was a lot younger. I was 21. I was in there for 9 years. But I found out how to approach somebody that was older than you, a higher rank than you, or a lower rank than you. So it really depends on how you communicate with them. When I got into the business field, when I was in the mortgages, I was a sales manager. So you had to discuss with everybody. You had to take, 10 or 15 different loan officers, and they're 10 or 15 different people, and they all react a different way. But it's just getting the basics down to get them forward. Okay. And that leads me up to, I was working for a law firm and speaking with people on the phone, and all of this is the same. I've been speaking for about 10 years, and I've been really my journey was perfecting the way to communicate with one another. And the only thing I would like to say is that when you communicate properly, that will increase the bottom line. That'll increase your profitability. If you don't communicate properly, then the other person will just say, thank you very much, and they're going to go somewhere.
Yeah. And that brings me to the next part of our conversation, because what I like to do as a thought leader when it comes to creativity is to help people understand the intersection between creativity and every other thing that we do, and every walk of life and every body of knowledge. And networking is something I feel and I believe and I know that requires some creativity in succeeding at, because you've got to be unique in the way you network with people such that you can stand out when you leave their presence, when you leave their midst, so that you can leave a good impression. You can be at an event and meet 50 people, but just 1 or 5 people stand out and leave that impression in you. 50 people can submit a proposal for the same thing, and just 2 or 3 people make that connection that I can attribute to that rapport, that networking framework that has been established. So what do you think about the need for creativity in building a network, whether between one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-many, and building a rapport in general? What do you think?
Well, is very important. It's probably the most important thing. When I speak to corporations, when I speak at conferences, it always comes down to the rapport. And you smile, you shake their hands, and everything. You have from 30 seconds to about 3 minutes to figure out where you are, where it stands, to build that rapport. And it doesn't sound like a long time, but it's enough time for you to, for instance, let's say you walk into somebody's office. You have basically 1 minute to scan his office or her office. And you're scanning for pictures of the child, pictures of, is it his child or her child? Is it her grandchild, his grandchild? Do you have something from youth sports? Do you have something from the major leagues? Do you have all this? And you can always find something to talk about. And the thing is that you never talk business right away. Okay. I come from New York, and it's always fast, 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 fast. What can you do for me today? And I'm living in the South, and it's a whole different ball game. Okay. But, you sit down, and let's say, now I was a baseball coach for 16 years. I was an umpire for 3 years. Wow. So if I see something for youth sports, I know I'm in. Okay. Because I will have them talk about their child, their grandchild, and everything else. And once you get that person to start talking about themselves, about their family, that opens up a whole new thing. And I have just a quick, it's a word, form, FORM. And it's just the key things in my mind. F is for family, O is for occupation, R is for recreation, and M is just any message that you can think is important. But you can always talk about family, their occupation, how long you've been doing this, or would you like to do something else? How about recreation? Do you play sports? Do you like to go water skiing? Something like that. Get on the same level and have them talk about themselves. And then that breaks down the first layer.
Wow. And that is really phenomenal. So you talked about not talking about business first when you meet someone to build that rapport. And that, brings me to my next question, because what if the person actually knows you came for business, and you came for business, and the person knows you're trying to make small talk just to get them to like you, and they don't want to give you that leverage, right? And so there's this wall. They build a wall when you're trying to connect. You're trying to reach beyond that wall, but they seem resistant and hesitant to allow you to build that connection. What do you do? And have you ever been in that situation before?
Oh, sure. Listen, I've been in sales my whole life. And so I was in that situation many, many times. But the whole thing is, you can't go in thinking you're there to see a client or to get a client. You're there to build a relationship. Okay. And when I talk about everything else but business. It's how I bring up the subject. It's how I, start the conversation. And that will immediately set that person at ease and have them talk a little bit. Or it'll be a little bit more difficult when he's just talking business. But if you're there to build a relationship instead of just a client, then you'll go a whole lot further.
Okay, so you mentioned about you being in your 20s and having to go into offices of people who were way ahead of you in age and in their careers and whatnot. And I feel like we should drill down a little bit into that, because one of the barriers that many creatives have is being able to connect with people who are, in a higher class or in another space than they are familiar with, whether it's an age difference, whether it's a career difference, whether it's a religious difference, whether it's an ideological difference or a psychological difference. To be able to come out of your bubble and enter into someone else's bubble and create that connection within a short space of time, do you have any framework or any experience, going through all of these hurdles that hinders people from being able to network efficiently?
3 words: practice, practice, practice. Okay? Listen, nobody's going to walk into a new anything and be able to go right away and speak on their level and just talk about everything that they want to talk about. Okay? You have to, that's why building the rapport is so important. When you first walk into the office, you have to see what the office is. When I went to a construction site, I was in a dress shirt and a sports coat. When I went to an office, when they were just wearing dress shirts and a coat, a blazer, I wore a shirt, a blazer, and a tie. I'm always one step ahead. And this way, they'll never look at me like I'm just like, oh, well, he didn't know how to dress. Okay? So then when you speak when you speak to the janitor or the CEO, you have the same amount of respect. Okay? You have to have that same respect for no matter who you talk to. And you have to talk to them as if they're that important. So you talk to the CEO, obviously he's going to be that important. Talk to the janitor, well, everybody else is going to think, well, he's just a janitor. No, you never know who you're talking to. And you always give the person the same amount of respect. And that's how you build up to that point.